Obadiah 1:11. Scripture quote, "In the day that thou stoodest on the other side," unquote. John Gill, "aloof off as a spectator of the ruin of Jerusalem, and that with delight and pleasure, when they should, as brethren and neighbors, have assisted against the common enemy, but instead of this they stood at a distance, or they went over on the other side and joined the enemy and stood in opposition to their brethren the Jews." Scripture quote, "In the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces," unquote. That is, at the time that the Chaldeans took Jerusalem and carried captives as many of the forces of the Jews as fell into their hands, or when the people spoiled his substance, as the Targum plundered the city of all its wealth and riches. Scripture quote, "And foreigners entered into his gates," unquote. The gates of their city, particularly Jerusalem, even such who came from a far country, the Babylonians, who were aliens and strangers from the commonwealth of Israel, whereas the Edomites were their near neighbors and allied to them by blood, though not of the same religion, and by whom they helped against a foreign enemy instead of being used by them as they were. Scripture quote, "And cast lots upon Jerusalem," unquote. Either to know that they should make their attack upon it, or else, having taken it, the generals of the Chaldean army cast lots upon the captives to divide them among them. So Kimchi, see Joel 3:3, or rather the soldiers cast lots for the divisions of the plundered city, as was usually at such times. Scripture quote, "Even thou wast as one of them," unquote. The Edomites joined the Chaldeans, entered into the city with them, showed as much wrath, spite, and malice as they did, and were as busy in dividing the spoil. So Ibn Ezra interprets this, and the following verses of the destruction of the city and temple of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, by Kimchi, expounds them of the destruction of them by the Romans, at which he supposes many Edomites to be present, and rejoiced at it. Could this be supported, the connection would be more clear and close between these words and those that follow. With respect, the gospel dispensation, beginning at Obadiah 1:17. But the Edomites were not in being then, that there was many of them in the Roman army, and that Titus himself was one, is all famous. End of Obadiah 1:11.